Welcome to Calming the Chaos, where I help you find peace in a chaotic world. I'm Tracy Cannella, licensed mental health counselor who talks about chaos from a mental health perspective. And I give you self-help resources you can use to calm your chaos in any situation in this world. Isn't this fun? It's not a substitute for counseling or psychotherapy, but just a lot of helpful hints and tools. So if you're on board, feel free to tune in. And now, let the chaos begin. Well, today I'm looking at this study from the National Institute of Health, and it is talking about chronic pain. And I wanted to address that subject because there's a lot of people out there who struggle with it, apparently. And some of them show up in my counseling office, and not for medical help, but because they have mental health consequences due to chronic pain, such as depression, anxiety, fears. And so this study, which was done in 2023, says that overall, the rate of chronic pain is 21% among adults. And then high impact chronic pain is 8%. So to look at chronic pain in definition is in the past 3 months, you have had this type of a pain. So it's either high impact or just chronic pain. High impact meaning that it affects or limits life activities or work activities on most of the days of the week. And that has to be present for 3 months. That I just feel very pained listening to those statistics, and my heart goes out to the people who struggle with chronic pain. And one of the reasons that I'm having Jeff Patterson on my podcast today is because he has a method which he works and practices that he has, and a lot of free resources that he's going to offer us today to work with chronic pain and other conditions. So I just want to welcome Jeff Patterson up to Calming the Chaos podcast. And he's going to share a little bit about himself, what he does, his books, and how he can help, and you can help yourself from struggling from chronic pain. So welcome, Jeff, to Calming the Chaos podcast.
Hey, thank you very much.
Yeah, Jeff, so you're from the Portland area originally, right?
Yeah, I've been here in Portland, Oregon now for about 30 years.
Well, that's long enough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So I've been running a meditation martial arts center here in Portland now for 30 years, a little over 30 years. And fortunate enough to, through the years, have over 26,000 students come through the academy. The meditation has been a true passion of mine throughout my career. And, I've spent the last 36 years of my life traveling around the world, training with meditation practitioners from all over. And one of the things that's so inspired me to follow the meditation path is that through the years and seeing all these students come through, I've literally heard hundreds of stories of how incorporating the meditative arts has positively influenced people's lives through dealing with pain, through learning how to overcome stress disorders, anxiety, panic attacks, for athletes learning how to improve their performance, artists learning how to improve their creativity. I mean, there's so many different directions that people can take a meditation practice, and I kind of break down the idea of meditation into 5 different paths. So there is kind of the athletic approach that teaches people how to improve their performance. Then there's the therapeutic approach, which is great for increasing your stability, flexibility, your strength, and working through ailments. And then there's the medical side of the practice, which, if you're familiar with Chinese medicine, all of Chinese medicine theory comes from Qigong, which is a meditation practice. And then there is the philosophical side of the training, which talks about life virtues and how to think about things and be a little bit more in tune with our thoughts. And then lastly, there's the spiritual side of the practice. And so anybody coming to a meditation practice is usually going to follow one of these 5 paths. And there's different practices that we would integrate and use to build a life practice around meditation. And one of the things that I always try to teach people and help people understand is that meditation isn't meant to be a hobby we do once or twice a week. It's meant to be a way of life. We want to integrate these practices into our day-to-day activities so we really start to reap the benefits from that. And if you're dealing with a stress disorder and you think that only every time you get stressed, you meditate to try to deal with it, it's not going to be very effective. You got to lay the foundation. It's kind of like if you go plant a seed and want an apple tree to grow, it's got to grow roots first. You got to build that foundation. So by doing that, you can really start to reap the benefits of the practice.
Yeah, and I think from a mental health perspective, I teach there's preventative methods that you can use to get your resources up and very strong and build resilience. And then there's the triage approaches where if there's something that just sort of hits you out of the blue that you can use as well to calm yourself down. And I know I'm going to do a video on that someday, so let's just wait for that to come out. But it sounds like what you're doing is really cool. And so one of the things I wanted to do was to give the audience an example. So these are some clips from the NIHR TV YouTube website, and it's just one woman and she's struggling with chronic pain. And we're going to play a couple of clips and talk about how we would work with this woman in this segment here. And so if you're willing to do that, we can do that.
Sounds great.
All right, so let me get the first clip up here.
You don't think about your body unless it goes wrong. I mean, a normal person isn't aware of their legs because they just say, right, walk, and their brain tells them to walk and they walk. Whereas when you're in pain, you're aware of them all of the time. I feel like my body's got an existence all of its own. And if it doesn't want to react in the way that I want it to, then there's nothing I can do about it. It's as if my body's in 2 parts. The old good bit and the pain bit. One bit works and the other doesn't. And when it's bad and I can't move properly, it's like my body's not part of me at all. It won't obey.
Okay. Well, so looking at this person and her chronic pain description, I'm just curious about, you mentioned 5 types of approaches that you have. What do you think might work with her?
Well, she didn't really talk too much about her actual problem. What I saw from listening to her, a lot of it was her mindset on how she is approaching the problem. And if every day you think about how bad you have it and all of these negative things that are happening, you're going to keep getting the same thing. An average person has between 80 and 90,000 thoughts a day. And 90% of those thoughts are the same day in and day out. And so if we're thinking these negative thoughts about the way things are, we're never going to make that change. And so the first point would be to introduce somebody like that to these meditation practices and learn how to build a life practice around the meditative arts, which can influence their physiology, their mental thoughts, their emotions. And when you ask about I think you're asking about the 5 regulations there. When I talk about the 5 regulations, these are kind of like the foundational principles in any meditation practice, whether you're doing sitting meditation, a Tai Chi form, Qigong, yoga, standing meditation, it doesn't matter. They all use these 5 regulations as kind of a foundation to set the tone for everything in your practice. And they are regulating the body, regulating the breath, regulating the mind, regulating the energy, and lastly, regulating the spirit. And briefly, I'll kind of touch on what all of these are. So when we talk about regulating the body, this is basically understanding our skeletal alignment and our muscular tension and learning how to control these things in everything we do. And an example of that would be if you're sitting down at your computer, you've been there for 3 or 4 hours and your shoulders are rounded forward, your neck's getting stiff, you're feeling really depleted. And then another example, the most important person in your world walks into the room and your body perks up and you feel like you're on top of the world and everything's great. Well, we're in 100% control of those two different scenarios all day, every day. And the question I often ask people is, which one of those do you choose to be in most of the time? Because it's your choice. And so when we start learning how to regulate the body and control these things, this can strongly affect our physical, mental, and emotional states. Then the next regulation is regulating the breath. And regulating the breath is a very deep topic, and it's something that if you study the meditative arts, you can study for the rest of your life and still not master all of these skills. And in Qigong, it's often referred to as the science of the breath because there's literally hundreds of different breathing strategies in Qigong. And so we broadly categorize them into yin methods and yang methods. Yin methods are often deeper, more holistic style meditations. And what I mean by yin breath is if you ever listen to somebody sleep, their natural breathing pattern is a longer inhale and a shorter exhale. And this is the body's natural way of bringing our conscious mind into our subconscious mind, which is where we are when we're sleeping and dreaming. And so if we want to emulate this style of energy in the body and learn how to bring that energy inward, we can do longer inhales, soft retentions at the end of the inhale to help bring that energy inward, which is great for dealing with stress, anxiety, panic attacks, for improving our focus. I mean, there's lots of different directions we would take this side of the practice. Then we have the yang side of the breath, which is more aggressive. And with the yang practices, an example of that would be if you ever had to push your car, you pick up something heavy, your natural instinct is exhale, maybe put tension in the breath, make the breath audible. And this is a way to generate power and expand that energy outward. Now, when we can understand how to use the breath as a strategy, and in Chinese philosophy, they call this balancing the kan and li, or the water and fire, we can use the breath to adjust our physical, mental, and emotional outcomes. We all go through the day with emotional ups and downs. Some people are like a roller coaster, others maybe a little more balanced. But when you start understanding to use the breath to control these, when you see yourself starting to get excited, we can use the yin side of the breath to bring it back down. And when you feel yourself starting to get depleted, we can use the yang side of the breath to bring us back up. And now we can find more balance and consistency throughout the day rather than riding that roller coaster. Then the next regulation is regulating the mind. And just as with the breath, this is very complex and something that you'll spend the rest of your life working on. One of the most common things I hear people say when they come to the meditation practice or they ask me about it is they'll say, I tried meditation, but it just didn't work for me. I couldn't quiet my mind. And somewhere along the way, people got this misconception that in order to meditate, you need to be in this state of nirvana and have nothing bother you. And it couldn't be further from the truth. I've spent the last 36 years of my life studying the meditative arts. I've traveled around the world many times training with very influential, amazing teachers all over the planet. And I have never once met anybody who doesn't get distracted. We all do. It's just a way of life. But the cool thing is by integrating meditation into your life, you start recognizing these distractions and having the tools and understanding of how to deal with them. So if you're doing a sitting meditation or a movement meditation for 20 minutes and you get distracted 50 times during that session, we recognize the distraction. We use our posture, our breath, our movement to bring us back to center. And now you just got 50 repetitions of how to come out of this distracted state and be in a centered state. And if you do this every day, every month, every year, you start to become unshakable and have the power to adjust these things and be in control of your mental stability. Now, there's this story that I love about these two older monks, and they're walking down this dirt road after a big rainstorm and everything's muddy, and they come up to this big mud puddle, and there's this little girl on the other side of the puddle standing there in a white dress, and she's crying. And the older monk, he yells across the puddle and says, "Are you okay? Is there anything we can do to help you?" And she says, "I need to be somewhere, but if I walk across this puddle, I'm going to get my dress all dirty." So the older monk, he rolls up his pant legs and he walks across the puddle and picks her up, puts her on his back, takes her to the other side, and she's off on her way. Well, him and the younger monk, they're walking down the road and getting a couple miles down the road. And finally, the younger monk is just furious. And he says, "You know, we're not supposed to touch girls, but yet you did back there at the puddle." And the older monk looks down at him and says, "You're still thinking about that little girl? I left her back there at the puddle." And how many times in life do you get 2 miles down the muddy road before you even notice the imbalance, let alone let it go? And the meditative arts helps us see these things so it doesn't take too long for us to make these adjustments. And again, we've all got to make them. You're never going to be perfect and in balance, but having the tools to recognize them before you get 2 miles down the road is going to save you a lot of heartache and a lot of negative thoughts along the way. And then the next regulation is regulating the energy. And regulating the energy is an extremely deep topic and something we could literally spend hours talking about. But the basic idea of it is, if you have reached a competent level in regulating the body, the breath, and the mind, now you have the tools needed to regulate and circulate the energy in the body, which will do for different meditation purposes. And then the last regulation is regulating the spirit. And regulating the spirit is a very profound idea. It's, a lot of meditation practitioners and monks will spend their whole life journey studying meditation and practicing to reach that stage of enlightenment. And through these 5 foundational principles, they're the root of any meditation practice. But as you can see by kind of looking at them briefly, that by integrating these concepts and this awareness into your life, it can affect anything you do.
That was beautiful. I am so happy that you were able to explain that, because many of my clients will not try it because they can't do it perfectly. And they say, I've tried it. It doesn't feel right. And knowing from somebody who has done, I don't know how many thousands of students have you taught, and, success stories you've heard, hearing it from you might influence them to at least give it a try. So one of the things with chronic pain is that, people who struggle with it, they struggle with their relationships because the other people don't feel their pain, and they may look a certain way. They may look fine, but they might be in pain, and they struggle with, in this case, the lady has a back problem. And she really has some problems with the medical people not paying attention to her pain, and her friends, they don't recognize that she is in pain because she looks okay. And then so knowing a little bit more about her, do you think that one of those 5 practices might benefit her? She has a back problem, and she also has this mindset problem that you eloquently pointed out, and also said a bunch of things that she could do. Knowing a little bit more about her, would you suggest anything else for her?
Yes. So any physical limitation that we have, understanding what our range of motion is and being really clear on what we can do to not cause that pain to be worse. As much movement as you can do, we want to look at the positive things that we can do to move the body and keep it active, because the worst thing you could do, doesn't matter what the injury is go sit on the couch all day. then your body's going to start atrophying, you're going to deteriorate, you're going to get weak, and everything else is going to be down that negative path. So we want to look at all of the things that she could do. And of course, I can't see that without talking to her and seeing what her ability is and where she's at. But we would want to integrate movement practices. We would want to integrate a consistent daily practice so she can start to change her mindset, because it's really clear that, through all of this things that have happened to her, that she's pretty a negative approach and view on things. And, anytime somebody new comes to the practice, I always have 3 things that I get them to contemplate and think about, because, as a teacher, the most difficult thing with teaching anybody is getting them to see the value of doing this practice and being consistent, because I want people to reap the benefits of the practice if they're coming to see me, and I want them to experience these life-changing blessings that come from doing the meditative arts. And so what I found is that if you can get them to have a clear understanding of these 3 things, it's the best way to help them be the most successful with the practice. And the first one is, if you're thinking about integrating meditation into your life, it's so important to think about, why am I drawn to the practice? What am I looking to get out of this practice? And maybe for you, it's you want to stay more mobile and watch your grandkids grow up, or you want to learn how to deal with stress and anxiety, or be more positive, or you're an athlete and you want to improve your performance. You really need to have some good, strong whys, because it doesn't matter who you are. Tomorrow, next week, next month, your alarm's going to go off and it's time to get up and practice. And you're going to say, I'm feeling tired today. I'm just going to hit the snooze button and I'll do it tomorrow. And if you don't get to the point where you shift your mindset from thinking, this is something I have to do, to something I get to do, and I'm excited about it because it's making so many positive life changes in my life, then you're never going to make it a way of life and something that you can really benefit from. Mm-hmm. Now, the next area, which is very closely related to the why gives you the energy, the consistency gives you the benefits to reap from doing all of the practice. And through consistency, we develop discipline, integrity, perseverance, and many other qualities through this practice. And the cool thing is that these qualities that we get from having this consistent daily practice, they feed over into every area of your life. You'll notice your relationships start to change, your work, your interpersonal conflicts with yourself. Everything starts to become better because we have this positive pillar that's offering us all these benefits in everything we do. And then lastly, the third area is you need to find a guide. You need to find somebody that's going to help you navigate through all the chaos and all the things that are out there. There's literally thousands of videos you could go to, millions of videos probably on YouTube that teach this practice and that practice. And, I've been studying for 36 years and I'm still learning myself. And so if you think that you're going to be self-taught and be able to experience the benefits of what the meditative arts have to offer, you're wasting a lot of time. I've literally had students come into the academy who have been self-taught, and they've been practicing 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And you'll see them get discouraged sometimes because they'll come in here and they'll see somebody that's only been around for 12 months who has a lot deeper practice, and they're getting a lot more benefits out of it because they've had a guide and they've had somebody help them. And so, lifetime, our lives are short, our time is valuable, and finding somebody to help point you on the best path is what's really going to save you a lot of time and get you those benefits that you're looking for by integrating this practice. And if you think about those 3 things and are seriously spend a little bit of time following that path, it's the best chance you have for really seeing the benefits of the practice.
Is your martial arts academy in person, or do you do things online? How does it look as if I was interested in being involved in your academy?
So we do have a physical location here, and at the Academy, we have 4 adult programs. We have our meditation program, we have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program, a striking program, which is boxing and Muay Thai, and then our Eskrima program. But my online program is just specifically geared around the meditative arts. And in that program, you're going to learn things like sitting meditation practices, standing meditation, how to use the breath as a strategy, and how to build an evolving life practice around the meditative arts. You're going to learn movement practices through Tai Chi and Qigong, and just have all these tools to start understanding, how do I use ritual, active, and philosophical practices to build an evolving life practice around what I'm doing.
Great. So it is online, so people don't have to go to Portland to attend or to gain some benefits from this. I do want to highlight your website here. It is actually named after one of your books, apparently, right? It is www.theyielding, YIELDING, warrior, one big word.com. For those of you who aren't on YouTube and can see it flashing on the screen. And that website has a link to his book, which is called The Yielding Warrior. And you just scroll down from that link that I just gave you, and you get a free copy of it. I mean, and then so tell us a little bit about the book, if you could, Jeff. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so you could go to theyieldingwarrior.com and get a free digital copy. But if you'd like a physical copy of the book, if you go to theyieldingwarrior.com/book, we'll send you a free copy if you just pay for shipping and handling. So that's another option you have there.
Oh,
The book is about the idea of yielding. And, I break it down into 3 basic pillars. We have our physical yielding, our mental yielding, and emotional yielding. And physical yielding is the idea that I push you, you push me, whoever's a bigger, stronger person with the most leverage eventually is going to push the other person over. But with yielding, instead of us trying to see who the bigger meathead is, when you push me, I get out of the way of that force, and now I can respond with less effort. So it's obvious how this is beneficial in athletics, because many times we come up against other athletes that are bigger and stronger than us. Now, in order to be good at physical yielding, a lot of things have to come into play. You need to be well rooted. The lower part of your body needs to be strong and flexible so you can change your central equilibrium without getting tight. The body has to be relaxed. The breath has to be calm, and the mind has to be present. Now, while it's a lifetime journey to really master these skills, the cool thing is that by integrating meditation into your life, you start becoming more aware of these things from day one. And when we start to build that awareness, now is where it really starts to get interesting. And we're kind of moving into what I call mental yielding, in that, imagine if we're having a conversation and I say something that unsettles you. And because of my heightened awareness, I pick up on it from that first sign of imbalance. I can adjust the conversation and keep us in a happy place. Than before, if I'm not paying attention, I'm too far off track. You might get to the point where you want to slap me upside the head. And so learning how to use yielding in all of our interactions is extremely powerful. One, you're just being more considerate, which is something we should all do anyway. And 2, it allows you to be strategic so you can guide the conversation to a positive outcome with the least amount of resistance. Now, this is beneficial in your relationships, in business, and sales, and negotiations. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can apply this idea. And then lastly, we have emotional yielding. And emotional yielding is very much like mental yielding, but it's with your own interpersonal conflicts. So you think about, oftentimes something will happen to us and we'll respond and we'll go down this path. And we might get an hour, a day, a week down that road and realize maybe that wasn't the best choice. But with yielding and our heightened awareness through developing a meditation practice, we're able to be more present and kind of step back and analyze the scenario, and oftentimes make better choices that cause us a lot less heartache on the other side. And I've been explaining this idea of yielding now for many years, running the academy for 30 years. And one of the most common things I'll hear people say is that, yielding makes a lot of sense. And in fact, I use yielding all the time. And while I would agree, I think everybody does some degree of yielding all the time. It's kind of like if you or I were to walk into a crime scene with a detective who's been on the job for 30 years, I guarantee you that detective would see things about the series of events and the timeline that I know at least I would have no clue of. And the meditative arts helps us see things inside of ourselves and inside of other people that I truly believe most people will go through life and never have any clue of unless they have a practice like this in their life.
So this book explains that, and it is free. You can get even a physical copy of it if I guess there's something that you can fill out on it's the Yielding Warrior /book. You can actually get the book in a physical paper copy, but just paying shipping and handling.
Yes.
Awesome. Great. Yeah. So we're going to take a little bit of time now to highlight some of your social media. So you can find Jeff here on Instagram, and it's at The Yielding Warrior. So that's pretty easy to remember if you remember the title of the book. You've also got a Facebook group, and it's a different name than that. It's Tai Chi Yielding. I think is that an open Facebook group that anybody can join?
Yes.
Awesome. So there's free resources. I've been on your YouTube channel. It's at The Yielding Warrior on YouTube. There are some videos there that are very helpful. They talk about a lot of the things that Jeff has been talking about here, completely free. But do go to his website and find out more about him. And you had another book that you wrote called How to Meditate as well, correct?
Yes.
And so that I believe explains what it's about. But I don't know if it's a 1, 2, 3 cookbook approach or if it is an in-depth sort of long book. What kind of book is that?
It's more on the kind of philosophies and the thought processes behind incorporating meditation into your life. And, also for those of you that are liking this idea of this methodology with incorporating meditation, if you go to that same website, we have our online program where you can try it out for a couple weeks and just kind of see if this is something that works for you. And hopefully you check that out and enjoy it.
Great. Wonderful. Well, I appreciate you being here today. And I just wanted to let you know that the lady in the video did change her mindset somewhat. And she was doing some of the recognizing, like, this is what I can do in a day. This is what I can't do. I used to be able to clean my whole house, and now I'm only able to clean so much. And she's come to some sort of an acceptance about what she can and can't do. So I wonder if she is in a place, as I just described to you, I wonder if she is in a place where she would be willing to take that first step and even visit your website. What do you think?
I think anybody could benefit from doing the meditative arts. The Dalai Lama once said that everybody should meditate for 20 minutes a day. Unless you're too busy, then you should meditate for an hour. And I love that saying, and that I really think that if everybody out there spent a little bit of time connecting with themselves and learning how to put those walls and take off those masks and be a little bit more in tune with things, the world would be a much better place.
And I agree. Thank you again, Jeff, for being here today on Calming the Chaos podcast. And you take good care.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Calming the Chaos podcast. If you found this podcast interesting or helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. You can also go to www.calmingthechaospodcast.com to listen to all Calming the Chaos podcast episodes. I look forward to sharing my next podcast episode with you. In the meantime, take care.